Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are Hind College from Mumbai, India, and today we would like to present to you a short presentation on what strategies Facebook and Tencent can employ in the future. We have called it the Looking Ahead portfolio. As consultants, we would like to present this to you next. Now, before we delve into the actual semantics of the presentation, I would like to briefly point out a few of the facts that Facebook is currently doing. There are 1.7 billion active users on Facebook, 500 million active users on Instagram, a billion active users on WhatsApp, 896 million people on QQ, and 899 million on QZone. That's a lot of people, a lot of data, and similarly a lot of problems. These will be highlighted by my colleague Prateek.
So the key problems faced by Tencent are, we realize there's a lack of market share. They have a lack of global presence, due to which they need to increase their geographical expansion into several growing economies such as India and China. China, for example, they already have a great presence, but they need to expand into other global markets. Facebook, on the other hand, has a single source of revenue, with 97% of it being sourced from adverts, from advertisements. But so that's the basic problem we're facing. Now my colleague will take you forward from here.
So our strategy for today has been, we've named it diversify, integrate, and consolidate. We feel that Facebook needs to employ this strategy, and this is what we've named it. How will we do that? Let's take a look. First things first, we have clubbed the entire Facebook's operations into something we call the Facebook ecosystem, which consists of products that include WhatsApp, Instagram, Oculus, AdWords, Messenger search and video on the website, and what we like to call DroneSoft. We would be explaining to you how each of these individual products can be applied to technologies that Facebook is currently in. The Facebook's future is obviously not in advertisements. 10 to 15 years down the line, this would decrease significantly. Therefore, the company really needs to expand into payments, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, and tourism and stores and payments. How will we do that? Each individual product is very, very strongly placed to take advantage of all the opportunities it is getting. WhatsApp, for example. We feel WhatsApp has such a strong grip in the Indian market and Chinese market that integrating merchants on the platform to make payments, transact money between friends and the stores themselves would be the next step for Facebook to diversify into making payment revenues. Secondly, artificial intelligence and machine learning. Assistant chatbots are the new future, and they will learn the trends and techniques that you employ on your Facebook feed to understand your favorite destination, to understand your preferred time of travel, your favorite colors, your favorite stores, and how much money you can spend on each. The Internet of Things. Facebook will get into consolidating the entire home that you own and all the electrical appliances. Whether you're running out of detergent on your washing machine, whether some supplies in your fridge are missing, or whether the last bottle of wine is running out. It will all track the same. And assistance. Artificial intelligence assistance is probably the next big thing. Imagine having someone on your phone assisting you in doing pretty much everything. You could possibly ask your phone to clear your schedule for tomorrow, and it would automatically send out WhatsApps to all the people you had meetings with, telling them that you need to reschedule. We feel that WhatsApp is placed perfectly to make advantage of these technologies, and in the future this is the course for diversification. Next, I would like to take a look at Instagram. This is just a small brief of what we feel the chatbot can do for you. It's showing the first chatbot asks, how can I help? If I had to come to Hong Kong and I had this technology, I could just be like, flights to Hong Kong. It would pull up the best possible flights. I just tell them, yes, the second one is great. Since my credit card is already linked to their services, it would just book the flights for me. And now, because it's integrated with the Google ecosystem on my phone or the iPhone calendar, it just shows me when my flight is and when I need to leave my house, all at the click of a button. Instagram, 500 million active users, of which the demographic is mostly people below 40. That's an important demographic to target. We feel that tourism, stores, and payments can really benefit from this. Imagine getting an advertisement that accurately portrays what a country can give me, what culture I can experience, what foods I can eat, what restaurants I can go to. That would really help me decide if I'm supposed to take my next trip to Vietnam or go crazy in Amsterdam. Stores. Instagram has the largest number of vendors who now direct people who are on their stores to third-party applications. Why? What we feel is Facebook needs to incorporate a payment service or payment gateway via Instagram which allows me to see what my friends have purchased, what other people are purchasing, and how I can purchase the same all through the app. Because it is not important, or it's not advisable for me to leave the ecosystem and move into a third-party vendor or an application when it can happen through my screen. Next, I'd like to talk about the drone. Now, drones are the next big thing. We want to delve a little into the hardware side of what Facebook can do, since Oculus and drones are the things that they're betting on. With drones, we feel Facebook can penetrate and get internet access in the growing economies of Africa, rural parts of China, and rural parts of India, which significantly would improve the user base. Now, the economies we talk about rely largely on agriculture for a living. Imagine if Facebook's drones could heat map agricultural growth zones, tell you what kind of soil is being prevalent, the rainfall conditions, weather, etc., and allow farmers in their own vernacular tongues to get this information on a single platform and purchase seeds, microfinance, apply for credit score ratings, communicate with banks, advisors, etc., all through the app. Why stop at just giving them information? Let them use the information and offer them convenience. This is, we feel, is for the drone part of stuff. Next, we want to move into Oculus. Virtual reality is basically allowing yourself to experience another environment while being seated in your own. And augmented reality is adding another layer of information to your existing environment. If I look at Prateek, augmented reality would allow me to map his face and tell me who he is, how many friends he has on Facebook, who I know, who I don't know, his likes, interests, etc. The main application of this, we feel, is in shopping and tourism. Imagine if I'm sitting in my house, I get to look at probably the Eiffel Tower with the lights on my Oculus, and it's like, yes, I need to go there next to experience it for myself in real life. Or if I look at the Victoria Peak from top and experience the entire beauty of the Hong Kong Bay, it would really allow me to get an experience beforehand and before making the actual purchase. It allows for more informed consumer decisions, and that we feel is the future. Because people are getting smarter, we need to offer them value for their buck. Stores. I'm walking down Admiralty. Louis Vuitton stores appear in front of me. I can see the catalog of products, see what they have in stock, see what I can buy, and probably pre-order one and pick it up after I'm done having my meal. Next, entertainment. Imagine an online release of a virtual reality movie, or an online promotion of the next Spider-Man film, or an online promotion of the next Avengers movie that's coming out. It would directly apply, or it would directly help the company producing it in getting in touch with the demographic market intended, and really immerse the person in the experience. All of this again ties into augmented reality, virtual reality, and it's just basically consolidating and integrating everything Facebook has into finer and more reformed forms of revenue. Now my colleague Ishan will take it forward.
So as my colleague Divik mentioned, WhatsApp is pretty big in countries like India and other Asian countries, but there's still a big market in Western countries where Messenger is used on a big scale. So more than 1 billion people use messengers. So we would like to clone whatever there is on the WhatsApp app for the Westerners also. So we would suggest them stores to shop on and payment gateways for them, and also include a chatbot for booking their flights and things like that, for suggestions and other things. Next is search and video. So Facebook is doing a great job with search and video. So search and video can help the consumers with suggested tourism places, the stores, and also it can use artificial intelligence and machine learning to improve the consumer experience. Also, AdWords is a pretty big part of Facebook. The major revenue still comes from AdWords. The 97% of their revenue comes from AdWords. So this whole thing ties with AdWords pretty well. So now my friend Prateek will take you forward with the presentation.
Thank you, Sean. So just to bring out the key performance indicators by which we can actually measure how effective our strategies are. These are a few to mention: the number of transactions that we have per day, the amount of ad spending that actually happens, and the number of stores, the online stores, and the active users per month. You can take it forward.
So to consolidate what we're talking about and what Facebook needs to do is basically we are trying to show that revenues increase by diversification of the product mix, by increase in volume of payments, and by synergy with existing products. Since advertisement still remains Facebook's strongest core, all of the following services, or all of the services we've spoken about previously, would really help them refine each AdWord that goes out to an individual user on the basis of their preferences and the information collected. Information begs to be organized and sorted, and using the organization and sorting, we can really drive the advertisements forward in terms of correct targeting and converting leads into actual sales and revenue. Next, my colleague Upamanu will explain our strategy for Tencent.
So we spoke a lot about Facebook, but let's get down to business with Tencent. So Tencent is a big player in China, but it's not so big in other parts of the world. Now our strategy enables Tencent to take that business global. So how do we do that? We focus on their core competencies at first, which is in the payment system. So we have the entire Tencent system, which includes chat, transactions, assistance, and in the future it'll be mobility, which is self-driving cars, and currently it's applications that allow you to book taxis. So our China focus basically tells us to focus on China in payments and mobility and with our transactions. So our goal for that would be to increase transaction volume, to increase mobile transactions, and continue getting more users to the Tencent platform through WeChat and WePayments. Our global strategy for Tencent is slightly different. Globally, Facebook dominates the market. Companies like Google are also slowly getting into payments, and companies like Samsung globally are really big players. In our very own country, we have players such as Paytm and JioPay, a lot of Indian players who are getting into transactions. Our strategy for Tencent would be to focus on gaming in particular. Gaming is one market that does not have a big player globally. There are big companies who make games, there are big companies who own games, but there's no giant that conquers the market. Tencent can become that giant. Now our strategy for Tencent is similar to our strategy for Facebook, in that we advise them to diversify, integrate, and consolidate. We do that through three things. The first is through AR and VR, where we diversify their gaming portfolio by getting into esports and allowing the artificial intelligence platform along with augmented reality and virtual reality to enable people across the world to experience gaming right from their homes. Imagine you're watching an esports tournament. You're playing League of Legends or Dota 2 or Counter-Strike, and you want to watch from your own home and experience the game as the professionals experience it. You can just put on your VR goggles and experience the game that way. Now, that also ties into our transaction platform and our payments platform. Through WePay, we can buy games, we can buy tickets for games, and we can basically organize our entire gaming library and portfolio and conduct transactions through that. We can also acquire a lot of companies. Now, Tencent became a big player by acquiring companies such as Activision, Blizzard, and Riot Games, which is why they are big players in the gaming sphere today. We can continue that strategy by acquiring even more gaming companies in markets such as the United States. We can look at acquiring companies like Valve Software, which owns their own platform called Steam. Tencent is large enough to purchase Valve, and it can also purchase similar companies along those lines. So with that, we can actually create an entire gaming and esports platform and their own marketplace and their own gaming ecosystem. So that will allow them to diversify, integrate, and consolidate. I'd like to end by quoting one of our inspirations back in India. Mukesh Ambani, before launching Reliance Jio, said this, which is, "Data is the new oil." What he meant by that is information about users and data about users, data about their transactions, about where they go, is the new oil. There is money to be made from knowing what people are doing, not just through advertising, but through information itself. This ties into our strategy for both Facebook and for Tencent. By having a huge number of people on your platform, both in China and globally, you can enable them to take microtransactions, payments, and transactions on your own platform, keep it within your ecosystem, and inculcate that ecosystem with your very own values and your own products. We can diversify our product mix, and we can focus down on our core competencies and try to grow volume, while also maintaining Facebook's key revenue, which is advertising. So with that, we'd like to conclude our presentation. We now open the floor to questions from the judges. Thank you.
So
for Tencent, you've mentioned your strategy is diversify, integrate, and consolidate. For you, out of those three, which one is the key priority, or should be the key priority for Tencent?
For Tencent, sir, I feel that integrating and consolidation would be the more significant focus, because currently Tencent is pretty diverse in their operations. They have operations ranging from booking apps to transport to payments to food, everything. But the integration needs to happen over the course of the entire supply chain. Therefore, we feel that integration is really important in this core aspect. That's why we feel integration is more important.
To add to what my colleague Divik said, by having their own ecosystem and integrating that, by taking their gaming platform and perhaps combining that with what WeChat is doing currently, you can actually ensure that the key markets, which is the esports market, which will be worth $200 billion this year, can actually be integrated straight into WeChat. So people from China can communicate globally, and you can take the platform global through that. So I also believe integrate is the right answer.
There seems to be more ideas for Facebook versus Tencent in their presentations. Is there any particular reasons?
So, ma'am, we feel that Tencent right now is in a pretty strong position, and also we've identified a key problem that in the case study says that Tencent was experiencing problems in expanding to other markets. But the market that they're so used to or accustomed to is so big that there's so much more juice to be squeezed out of it. And Facebook, even though its presence is larger, there's a lack of the integration that Tencent already possesses. So it's a game of catch-up versus expanding. Therefore, we feel that Facebook needed a little more tweaking compared to Tencent.
So follow-up questions on Tencent. You mentioned that there is a need for integrate and consolidate. But you also said they need to go out of the market to globalize. So which one is Tencent going to focus on?
Could we have 5 seconds to discuss? So our diversification strategy for Tencent is basically in the long term. We start out with diversifying in terms of gaming. They already have a little foothold in gaming because they own big companies like Riot Games, like Activision, Blizzard. So they already have their foothold in that. Our slide mentioned that that would get them a foot in the door in the global marketplace. So that foot in the door is gaming. That'll allow us to eventually, maybe 5-7 years down the line or in the long term, allow us to expand into different markets and take their payment system and their chat applications and their entire ecosystem forward globally.
So, are you saying gaming is just a step?
Yes.
Because most gamers I know don't pay any money for it. Most of them are very young.
So, sir, when we mentioned gaming and integration with VR and AR, we were also tying into Tencent's advertising policy. What we feel that if today I sit and I play a game and the ads that appear in the breaks can also be targeted to individual users who have logged into the system. And I feel that that's really important. So despite the gamers not paying, it's the advertisements that pay for this.
To add to what my colleague Divik said, gamers don't pay for the game outright, but eventually somewhere down the line, they are paying money through some means. So a lot of free games on mobile marketplaces are actually have a freemium model where you have microtransactions within the game. So a lot of these free games somewhere down the line will try to upsell you to buy a greater package or to buy this new digital. They have their very own digital economies, so they'll try to sell you something through that. So for example, Steam, they're doing that currently where they have their own economies through Counter-Strike. You're selling digital items within the game. So once we create that ecosystem, that marketplace with Tencent, that's one way to make people who don't pay for the game still put in revenue into your ecosystem.
But what about the other things that Tencent does well, such as the payments, hailing a taxi, the food, the messaging? There's a lot of other areas that it dominates. Have you thought about any of those? I mean, people in other parts of the world need taxis, food, talk to friends.
So, sir, when we said that Tencent is going to expand globally, obviously it has tried to, and it has encountered regulatory problems, or perhaps it came through the lack of market understanding. But obviously in the future, since Tencent has done this in China really well, we feel like through probably a key acquisition or a key through a key partnership, Tencent can also expand into the other markets where it would like to be the people's preferable choice to hail a taxi, get food, book a movie ticket, a flight, or perhaps change my appointment with a dentist.
With the cost of gaming, in investing in a game, and with the game, it tends to be quite short lifespan as a product. Would you change your mind versus of this, of your strategy? If you really look into the payment strategy, it's lesser of a cost, but the revenue stream is continuous revolving coming in as you add on more shops or merchants.
So when it comes to gaming, the audience is obviously quite young. It's a very young audience, and the gaming market is expanding, but so is the mobile transaction market. But we feel that within China, Tencent already has a grip on transactions. So within China, that transaction thing needs to be saturated to a little more, a higher extent basically. And then we move on to gaming globally. So once we have an ecosystem that will give us the infrastructure with servers, with credit cards, with basically banking institutions, once that ecosystem has been developed a bit more globally, then we can start moving the payment system forward globally. So I think gaming will give us that slight foot in the door basically.
You've mentioned on Facebook now. You've mentioned the drone soft and the ecosystem and the ambition of giving access to Africa and some part of remote China or India. How much of this would you see part of the Facebook revenue in your projection? So you say you're moving from 90% to 60% in terms of the ad share. So you've got 40% of other things. How much of it is coming from this drone business?
So we feel that the projection that we made, that in the next 4 to 5 years we'd like to see Facebook's advertisement revenue decrease in terms of percentage share, but we would also, it was relative to the total revenue that the company made. Now we feel that out of the remaining 40%, a minimum of 15% needs to come from this, because the numbers we are talking about are large. I know for a fact that there are a few people in my country that operate businesses entirely on WhatsApp, and if given a unified payment solution and a place to present their stores, they would really benefit from it. And minimum 15% in the next 5 years would be coming from mobile payments and gateways, specifically in India and growing economies that WhatsApp operates and is more popular in.
Just an interesting question. Would you think it's easier for Tencent to go global, or would it be easier for Facebook to diversify?
Okay, so it's the conundrum we were facing too when we were talking about this case study. I feel like Facebook would find it easier to diversify because they pretty much have the infrastructure. They have the human capital, they have the financial capital, they have the people who are ready to fund, and they have the people who are ready to make all of the stuff that's required. And they already exist in these economies. It's only about furthering their position in each. Therefore, I feel it's easier for Facebook to diversify.
Just interject there. At the same time, you've got in the case there's an enough mention of the challenges of innovating within Facebook and the Western economies or the Western startups compared to the China way of innovating, not just copying but moving into leapfrogging and innovating a different way. How do you see that playing this battle between Tencent and Facebook?
So I feel that what the case study also elaborated on is that the solutions that exist in the West and are implemented in China often take the shape to match the local tastes. For example, when Uber launched in China, they lasted for a very little time before they had to sell out their operations to Didi Chuxing, because Didi Chuxing understood the intricacies of the market far better than Uber could ever. Therefore, I feel like the localization of the solutions that come from the West into China make it the pinnacle of innovation in its own sense. It is not outright copying as far as I'm concerned. Because even though I may not come up with the idea, if I'm the person who gets the idea across to 1 billion people, I'm still the winner.
So you don't have a problem copying to win.
No sir, that's not what I intended. I don't have a problem doing something someone's already doing, but adding my own twist which would improve the product that they are offering to match my local target market. That's what I'm trying to imply. In no way do I justify copying, but in no way do I stifle innovation.
A lot of good things are copied, just better.
That's one way to spin it, but as far as I'm concerned, it's localization that's really important and not the service itself.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank you.